King Charles has been in Germany. Of course, we're not going to bore anybody with that particular speech, but Disbelief, as Green King Charles gives royal assent to new gene breeding technology. This comes on from our coverage of this last week, this new gene editing legislation.
That's right. That's right. So it's gotten royal assent here. And of course, this is Julian Rose, who himself is a pioneer in organic farming in the UK, Sir Julian Rose. He's written this fantastic story here, and he's basically calling this out as a kind of betrayal of especially organic farming. So look at the details. So he is the Green King, right? Charles is, Prince Charles had a green thumb, and he is the Green King. So here's what Julian Rose has to say. Here's the document here, Gene Technology Precision Breeding Act 2023. And this is what Julian Rose has to say in terms of commentary. And mind you, Julian is an expert in this field. In one of the more shocking hypocrisies of this year so far, Charles III, King of England, considered to be a strong supporter of organic farming and environmental causes, has given his royal assent to a biotechnology innovation, which will provide an open book for UK firms to alter the genome of animals and plants so as to create novel engineered species and biotech foods, in quote. We say foods, and we use that term loosely here. In taking this step, Charles has committed an open act of betrayal of all bona fide farmers, particularly of organic farmers here. And he goes on, this piece of legislation will, for the time being, be unique to the UK, such as animals and plant biotech deformations are not allowed in the EU and many other countries. Isn't that interesting? Especially with Brexit just behind us. Very interesting indeed. And he goes on here, finally, a secondary deception relates to the marketing of such novel recombinant DNA experiments here. And he goes on, the UK government has stated that no separate definition will be given to gene technology engineered products. Therefore, no special labeling will be required. And that is, I think, the part that Julian Rose is most concerned about, is they're not making a distinction between these different types of GMO practices or normal breeding and, let's say, interfering with the genes and so forth. So what exactly are we looking at here? Is this more deregulation?
The government is, of course, the government wants to establish the UK as the biotech centre of the world. That's what it's claiming that it wants to do. In this case, they're attempting to claim that this will be in order to replicate what could be done in nature, but to do it in a much shorter time scale. So, we would end up with a plant or an animal which could have been arrived at through selective breeding, but that would have taken generation after generation after generation. This, of course, is untrue. They claim that this is not genetic engineering because although you're allowed to place genetic segments into the genome of the plant that you're messing with from an external source, from another organism, that genetic sequence has to be removed again before so it can be used in order to create a genetic change in the organism, but that particular sequence has to be removed again at the end, and therefore it's not genetic engineering. But as Julian Rose says here, they aren't distinguishing the terms when it comes to marketing. And so you don't know what you're going to get. And my question, Patrick, is because if we look at the way farmers are being discouraged from farming, they're being encouraged to rewild, they're being paid to take arable land out of production. We've got what's going on in Netherlands at the moment with the farmers there, and in Ireland having to reduce the numbers of farm animals and so on. My question is this about creating crops or animals which can be grown in factories, literal factories, rather than in soil?
Lab factories, yes. Bugs, lab-grown meat, and so forth. So yeah, I think you're right, and that brings us on to the other side of this story here in the United States. This is from Thomas Renz's blog here, republished by Naomi Wolf's Daily Clout. Missouri House testimony, BioTech admits Gates GMO factory food, as you're talking about, the lab-grown food, is a gene therapy. In other words, it does change the genetic structure. BioTech lobbyists in Missouri oppose HB 169 Gene Therapy Disclosure and Informed Consent Bill. They admit that GMO food, like the type Bill Gates is pushing to manufacture in these labs, factories, will alter your genetics here. And they go on. So the bill would require disclosure of any product that would produce impacts on the human body similar to gene therapy drugs, as well as requiring informed consent disclosure to include all risks and benefits, including adverse events of special interest. So there's people obviously opposing this disclosure bill. The industry is, and they're saying, well, it is dangerous. So that's basically what they're saying in the United States. So this is going on now on both sides of the Atlantic here, and in Europe. There's still some pushback on the GMO front on some of these issues, but for how long?
Right.
That's the question.